if it hits because now I got it.
Yeah. What did they not listen to?
Yeah. On the back.
Yes.
Of the throat.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm Rick Antezana, a partner with Dynamic Language and the president of the Association of Language Companies. And this is not Hot Ones. This is a tribute show that we've put on, tribute to Sean Evans and the Hot Ones team at First We Feast. And we thought it'd be a great format to do an interview with my industry colleague and friend, Renato Beninatto. Renato, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah, appreciate that. You may know Renato as one of the most influential voices in the language industry and as the founder and architect of a number of incredibly successful language companies over the years, most recently, Nimdzi Insights. Renato, how are you with spicy food?
You know, I'm originally from Brazil. So in Brazil, we don't eat spicy food traditionally. I learned how to eat spicy food when I moved to the United States. So I would say I moved here 20 years ago. In the beginning, when I lived in New York, I thought that pizza was spicy in the United States. So I went from a totally non-spice person to a person that appreciates some spice. Okay. But I must confess, I'm scared.
Okay. Well, you have a reason to be scared because this is going to be an education in spice. What you have in front of you is 10 hot wings, starting from pretty mild, that I think most 3-year-olds would be fine with, to something that I'm fairly terrified of, and I like spicy food. So, should we get started?
Let's get started.
All right, well, let's get into this. So this is the Cholula hot sauce, pretty mild. Is there a particular translation job that you can think of when you were running your own company that was a crazy big job that kind of blew you away?
A very, very big job. It was a patent, and it was a chemical patent. And it was very interesting. The funny thing about this job is that it was about 450 pages. And it was on a Friday, and the client had called 5 or 6 translators in Rio de Janeiro. This is before computers, before the internet. And nobody would accept it because it needed to be delivered on Monday. So I accepted the job because my colleague said there's only one crazy guy that will take a job like that. And I had my company with my ex-wife, and we prepared. We bought pills to stay awake, a lot of coffee. Our idea was to spend the night translating that patent. But I was lucky. This is the beginning of computers, so we're talking mid-90s. And I looked at the patent and I saw some patterns. There were some chemical elements that follow a certain pattern. They had a radical, and then there were like 200 chemical elements that would be always the same. So it would be, I'm making it up, but it will be alpha desoxybonus whatever, right? Some chemical name. The next one would be beta desoxy whatever. And it followed a pattern. So what I did, I created a spreadsheet in Excel, and I did all, and that was about 300 pages of the whole project. Wow. And that is what it taught me is never say no.
All right, wing number 2.
What is this?
So this one is sriracha.
Oh,
which is kid stuff. So you come from Brazil, a country that has a really interesting culinary history. So for you, what would you say are maybe a couple of the Brazilian dishes that you think bring the most to world cuisine?
Well, the most popular Brazilian food is probably churrasco. Churrascaria rodízio, where you go to a restaurant and they serve you as much meat as you can eat. I wouldn't say that that's culinary because it's essentially grilled meat.
It's grilled meat
and salad. Brazil, each state, it started already. Each region, I'm going to...
That's what it's there for, yeah.
I just choked. I see that people who come to Brazil love to eat pão de queijo, which is this cheese bread that we have.
So simple, but it's so good.
So, and that's the thing about Brazilian food. It's mostly simple food. It's everyday food. We don't have any sophisticated, great culinary feats like French.
Yeah. But what's your personal favorite? Like if you had a go-to Brazilian dish?
My favorite, it's like childhood food, right? It's just a basic dish, basic plate of rice, beans, farofa, which is manioc flour, fried manioc flour, some kind of meat, steak, and maybe a little salad.
Salad, that's good. That's good.
And a fried egg also. So this would be a good everyday kind of stuff.
Oh, I'd be
Simple
all over
meat.
that. That sounds fantastic. All right, well, let's jump straight into the next one. This is Dirty Dick's hot sauce.
Okay.
Hot pepper sauce with a tropical twist, so I'm expecting some
It's a little
citrus
sweet.
here. Yeah, a little on the sweeter side. Yeah.
Good. I like this one.
See? So that's part of what we need to figure out, which ones we like. So you're a person that has traveled a ton. You've been all over the world, every corner. How many countries do you think you have visited? And if you had to pick one that was what you consider the most interesting, which one would that be in your mind right now?
I actually track that. I have an app called Bean where I track all the countries that I visit. I know that I visited so far 76 countries. I have a personal goal of visiting 3 new countries every year, preferably being invited to go there for a presentation, a class, or a speech, or something like that. So if you're listening to this and I haven't been to your country, you can invite me. I'll be happy to go. This year I visited Moldova, Transnistria, which is the country that doesn't exist.
Never heard of it.
And nobody ever heard of it. It's a disputed territory. And I'm very excited that I'm going to Egypt for the first time. I'm taking my son for a vacation now in the summer. Nobody invited me to speak there yet, but I'm going on my own for a vacation. For me, the mystery continent is still Africa. I haven't visited any. Egypt is going to be the first country in Africa that I visit. I visited basically all the other continents.
So we are moving on to the Chiba Gold. This one is pretty popular.
Sounds like
what I understand.
a Japanese. Isn't Chiba a Japanese city?
Maybe. I think this one though is a Scotch bonnet pepper based sauce. So this might get you not right at first, but it'll eventually.
Well,
get
it didn't
you,
get
so.
me right at first.
Okay, let's find out about it. But while we're on this, let's talk about an industry topic that has been kind of significant over the last handful of years. I think here in the United States in particular, we've seen a trend of federal and state agencies taking a very close look at language companies, at translation and interpreting companies especially, saying, okay, we think your workers should be classified as employees rather than independent contractors. And so this plays into the gig economy versus the knowledge economy, which is something you and I have talked about quite a bit. So can you give me your take on the difference between those two economies?
So the challenge that you bring up is the challenge of how to deal with the government regulations around that.
Yeah.
And this is a very typical problem here in the United States. The reality is that in other countries this is not an issue because they already have regulations in place for employment and how things work. And in the United States, it's a country where you essentially, it's a right to work country.
Yes.
You have no rights as an employee, or some people say you have all the rights because you have the right to quit anytime you want.
To not work. Yes, exactly.
So this discussion is a discussion that has a lot of impact in the industry because of the model that we work with.
Are you trying to say that translators and Uber drivers are not the same?
Absolutely. You can have an Uber driver that translates,
Yeah.
but the thing about the Uber and the translator is that the core of this argument of whether a translator is an employee or not is around this concept that you cannot outsource the core activity of your business. So if you're a translation company, you cannot outsource translation. Right. If you're an interpretation company, you cannot outsource interpretation because that's your core business. But that's a mistake. And here's why. The core business of Uber is transportation. So you need a driver to do transportation. The core business of language services company, it's not translation. One of the things that you learn in economics, if you study economics, is that when it comes to outsourcing, you cannot outsource your core competence, right? And yet, all translation companies outsource translation to translators. So how is that possible? Because, and this is the core topic in the book that I wrote with Tucker, my partner, is that we're in the business of project management. And if you talk about interpretation, you're in the business of vendor management and scheduling and customer service. That's the business. It's not translation itself. It's facilitating the resources. So I think that categorizing, and that's a categorization problem and maybe even a marketing problem for our industry.
But the idea of all of the current contractors being employees, do you see it as practical or impractical?
It's not practical.
Okay, so Renato, let's move on and talk about the industry from a different perspective.
You tell me what I'm eating.
Okay, first I'll tell you what you're eating. This one, I've heard great things about. This is Los Calientes. This is actually from First We Feast, the guys that put on the Hot Ones show.
Okay.
And so, cheers. While you dive into that, I will just say, you've been part of the industry for a couple decades at least. Actually,
3.
more than that. Yeah, 3+. But you've seen a lot of developments. We talked about, implementing spreadsheets in the early 90s, etc. Do you see something specific as a trend coming up over the next 5-10 years that's going to impact the industry significantly?
I stopped talking about trends. I stopped talking about trends because we tend to, when you put that into that context that I've been in the industry 35 plus years, I'm old enough to have seen patterns and see some repetition in things that happen. So I don't like to talk about trends. There are some trends. A trend is the fact that this is an industry that is constantly growing. It never goes down in business. It's a growth economy. One of my clients once told me that she loves this business because when the economy is good, we translate contracts. When the economy is bad, we translate lawsuits. So it's a win-win kind of thing.
Good observation.
So it's easy to make a correlation between the growth of the industry and the growth of the economy. So the elephant in the room, the conversation that everybody's having at this time is neuro-machine translation and how this is going to revolutionize the industry. And we're not talking about 10 years anymore. It's impossible to talk about 10 years with the speed that technology is developing these days. Neuro-machine translation has been around for 2.5-3 years, and it has made amazing improvement. So the question behind your question is, are we going to become obsolete? Is there a trend that is threatening our industry? I don't believe so, because it's not only translation that this industry is about. The problem with the language services industry is that we have too many old people in this industry. Because old people are...
they're set in their ways.
They're set in their ways, they resist change, and they're a little afraid of things that are coming up. So if I want to... the pattern that I see is a pattern of growth, and the other pattern that I see is a pattern of fear.
All right, let us move on to Dawson's hot sauce.
It hasn't been that bad, Rick. You scared me with this stuff.
You know what? Maybe I overestimated how spicy these would be, but We're now on the
They
second
are
half.
spicy.
We're now in the second half, so we might start getting a little bit more serious.
I can feel that.
Okay, here we go. First time that I saw you speak, and the first time I met you, you kind of blew me away with something that I have heard you say a number of times since then, which was selling on quality is a mistake. And I think, I'm guessing you still believe that. For the people that haven't heard it or don't understand your perspective on that, maybe you could educate us a little.
I think it was 15 or 16 years ago. I spoke at the ATA, and my presentation was quality doesn't matter.
That was it, yes.
Of course, I had standing room only.
Of angry people.
Scared people.
Yeah.
I told you before, it's all about fear. I believe that quality is something that you deliver. You don't talk about. I joke that quality is like sex, right? You don't go around saying that you're good in bed, right? You don't go around and you say that the quality of your translation is good. I asked, in the first time that I made this presentation, I asked everybody in the room to raise their hand if they told their clients that the reason why they should choose them as their translator was the fact that they offered the best quality. Everybody raised their hand, and I said, look around, because if you're telling the truth, everybody else is a liar, right? You cannot have the best, not everybody can have the best quality. The thing that is more important than quality, the language quality, is the quality of the service. It's how you deal with problems.
With problems and
The client says, there's going to be a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. You make mistake when you're typing in English. If you talk to a translator, the first thing, what they understand as quality is correct grammar, correct punctuation, correct terminology. And we have a totally messed up system in our business, in our industry. But the reason why I say never sell talking about quality is because you put yourself in a situation that the moment you don't deliver it, your client,
you've lost your credibility.
You lost your credibility completely.
Yeah.
If it is a client who's a buyer of translations and services and comes to you and asks you, so what about quality? You have only two possible answers, right? We don't negotiate, we don't talk about quality, we deliver quality. And the other one is, how do you want to measure it? How do you want to qualify it? How do you want to tell me what is the way that you define quality, and I will deliver to that.
Okay, so now we get into the final four. This one is the garlic Reaper sauce, made with Carolina Reaper, which I understand is maybe the hottest sauce out there. Should concern you a little bit, but
my mouth is numb, by the way. For you who are looking at me and I seem nice, it's that I can't shut up, but my mouth is numb.
I can't feel my lips right now, but it's okay.
This one actually tastes good.
I can already tell this one, barely feel it now. It's gonna hit, I think, in a minute. Oh yeah. Ooh. Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
What would you say that is a common misconception about you in the industry?
I have people who love me. I have people who hate me for different reasons, and some of them for the same reason. But I think that one of the most common misconceptions that I hear, that I encounter, is the fact that people don't understand that I am a translator. First of all, I am a translator. I just was a translator that decided, oh God, this one is hot.
Yeah.
I'm just a translator who
Feel free to go with almond milk.
decided to look at the translation as a business. So I always remember this story. There was a very, very nice guy in the many years ago, in the early 2000s. He had a great blog, and it was Traductor Financiero. He was a Venezuelan, and he wrote fantastic things as a translator about the industry, but he picked on me. So, but Renato Beninatto is going to say that this is wrong because he's in the business of translation and he wants to exploit and take money away from translators and so on. That's not who I am. I am a translator. I translate still today. It's hard.
Yeah.
I'm active in associations.
Very.
I was the vice president of the Brazilian Translators Association until recently for 3 terms. I defend the success and the permanence of the profession. However, I'm pragmatic.
Yeah.
Right? I'm in this business. Essentially, I invested my career in my business to make money out of it. So I'm bitching you.
Yeah. I was hoping to make it through without having any milk. That's gone.
But
now. I already had some.
It's
Tears
burning.
All right. Yeah.
So that's the main misconception. They think associate me with the man who represents the big guys and the entrepreneurs. I at the end of the day, I'm a translator and I have lived all those issues.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So you are feeling this one a little bit?
I can feel it.
Yeah, for sure. The garlic reaper, legit. So anybody that thinks this is not a legit challenge, I can, my tears and my running nose are confirmed.
I haven't gotten there yet, I'm afraid. I'm distracted, I'm talking.
So your current company, Nimsy Insights.
Yes.
So you and your partner Tucker put this together, and you guys have had the company for how long now?
It's about almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
getting your feet on, you're getting very organized, putting the team together. What would you say is a piece of advice or consulting that you guys tell clients all the time that they ignore? And let's not forget the wing.
Yeah, which one are we eating now?
This is Dave's insanity sauce. I'm a little terrified of this one, but here we go. And for the record, no offense, Dave, this doesn't taste good.
It doesn't taste good. It's true. I agree.
Okay.
Let's see if it hits because now I got it.
Yeah. what did they
It
not
takes you
listen
at
to?
the back
Yes.
of the throat. So, what kind of advice people don't listen to me? Eventually, they listen, right? Eventually, people will realize that what you're saying comes from experience,
Yeah.
and applies to their business. But one of the things, another pattern that I see in working with Nimsy, the good thing about doing what I'm doing at Nimsy with Tucker now is that my business partner is the best partner you could have.
Yeah,
Because
that's
he
awesome.
is a process person, he's very organized, he is structured, and he transformed everything that I've been doing. Oh my God, this one is hot. Everything that I've been doing for 20 years haphazardly into a structured method.
Yeah. He's very organized, very operational guy,
Very
right?
operational, very good.
Yeah.
I need to drink.
Yeah, have some. I need to sweat. You can have some milk.
But then the recurring problem, the area where we're most successful on the LSP side is working with companies that have hit a certain plateau and they need to grow.
Yeah.
There are a few plateaus in our industry. There is a plateau around $2.5–3 million. There is a plateau around $10 million, and there's another plateau around $30 million, right? And then companies struggle to grow there.
Yeah.
And at these different stages, the owners have different problems. I can feel it in my eyes.
It's all over. Yeah.
This is his revenge. You complained about the taste.
I did, yeah. He's absolutely getting his revenge now. So while we still recover from Dave's insanity sauce, tell everybody what Seagull Consulting is.
Well, Seagull Management.
Seagull Management. Okay,
Seagull Management. We try not to do Seagull Consulting, but it's the same concept. But the Seagull concept is Seagull Management is that manager comes over, flies around the office, goes very, very high, shits everywhere, makes a lot of noise, and goes away.
Yes.
right? And then comes again, same thing. Flies over, shits everywhere, goes away. So that's the seagull management style.
Fantastic.
And that's a great way for you not to grow.
Exactly.
Right? And seagull consulting is a little bit like that. You go in, you say, this is wrong, change this, change that, and you move away.
Yeah.
And we try to move away from that model by using what we call this consultative research, where we give access, our clients have open access to our calendars and they talk to us anytime they want.
Yeah, big difference. That's awesome. All right, finish line is almost in sight, my friends. So here we go. Still
What is this one?
This one is
Number
Exoresco sauce,
Oh, gosh.
and it has a really terrifying picture on it.
Oh.
So
I don't know if I can taste anything anymore. My mouth is numb.
Well, if you don't taste this one, I think you've probably got some issues, but we'll find out. Here we go. So, next question was, what is one piece of advice that people tell you all of the time that you don't listen to?
People tell me to shut up.
Is that it?
I talk too much, but the problem is that there's so much that I want to share. There's so much that I want to say that I can't help myself. So the advice that I've heard over and over and over again is you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should listen twice as much as you speak. And I've heard this multiple times, and actually it's something that I'm working on is to listen more before I react and start with this verbal diarrhea that I can have sometimes.
Are you sure? Because it feels like this has been pretty one-sided. But this is an interview. You're supposed to do all the talking.
I'm having a second bite. You already gave up.
Oh, no, I had the whole thing. I got it. I killed it. Although I would say if I had to put these in order, I would put this one there. But
That's okay.
This actually has some flavor as opposed to this one was just hot and nasty.
Yeah.
Okay, my friend, here we come up to the finish line. This sauce is the Last Dab Redux. This is also by the First We Feast team. This is featured as the last sauce on Hot Ones on every episode, and the tradition is to put a final dab, an extra little dab on your wing.
Okay.
You don't have to, but if you want to, it's there for you. I mean, we've come this far, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. As we get into the last question, this is kind of softball. This is first. Cheers.
Cheers.
Toast you. Thank you for being here. So we've talked before about podcasts and educating yourself and entertainment, and I thought you had a really interesting method for consuming your podcast content. Like you kind of reward yourself with it.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that concept, and then also maybe a few podcasts that you listen to that you get a lot out of as you enjoy this terrifying wait?
I'm scared. I love podcasts. Podcasts was somebody described one to me once as how to say asynchronous radio, right? Mm-hmm. It's the opportunity that you have to listen to the things that are important to you outside of a regular schedule, which is the radio. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. And one of the things that I learned in one of the podcasts was this concept of pairing. So you pair something that you struggle with something that you really enjoy. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, this is terrible.
It's a spicy one, but I gotta say, I like the flavor.
Tastes good.
It's a good flavor, right?
Yeah.
I enjoy that flavor more than the food. So yeah, we'll get into that. So that's interesting. So
you pair. So what I started doing was I need to exercise, and I struggle with exercising. I enjoy walking, but if I can stay in bed and avoid walking, I would do that, or running or whatever.
Yeah.
So I love listening to podcasts. Mm-hmm. So I only listen to podcasts when I exercise. So what that has done to me is that sometimes I have so many episodes that I want to listen to that I will create opportunities. I started walking to work because it's a 1 hour walk from my house to this is terrible.
I'm sorry.
It tastes good, but it's strong. So going to work, I listen to my podcast. So I listen to I started listening the first time I was introduced to podcasts was Radio.
Yeah.
I love
NPR,
Radio.
right?
NPR.
Yeah.
I love, there is one that has nothing to do with translation, but it's called Rough Translation. It's fantastic. I strongly recommend, also from NPR. I love this Freakonomics because it gives you interesting concepts about how business and how it's not so much about business, it's about behavior, how people behave, how people buy, how people consume information, and so on.
Yeah.
Revisionist History by Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
And he started producing a new one. I just finished listening to the first season called Against All Rules by Michael Lewis, the guy who did Moneyball and all these great movies. Hidden Brain.
I'm sorry, man. Hidden Brain?
Hidden Brain
I've
is
not heard that
also a great, interesting podcast. I've been listening to a new series on the future of work.
Okay.
It's quite interesting, very good interviews.
How in the world do you find enough time for all these? You must
But you see,
exercise a lot.
The thing, no, now I'm struggling because I've been traveling.
There's so many. Yeah.
And I have probably 20 episodes that I've... Oh, there's one that is very short. Because there are podcasts like Akimbo by Seth Godin. Only 20 minutes. So my podcast, it's only 20 minutes. So there are other ones that are 1 hour.
My friend, 10 wings up, 10 wings down. You completed the effort. I think this is it's been a lot of fun for me personally. I really appreciate you taking the time and being here. There's nothing more to do than say congratulations and offer to you to plug anything you'd like to plug. This camera, or this camera. Let the people know what's going on.
Well, what I would say is, if you don't know Dynamic Language Services, take a look at them. Great company. Rick is a great guy. That's what I would plug. And I'm a man of 1,000 tricks. So listen to my podcast, Globally Speaking Radio, if you have a chance. Visit the website, nimzi.com. Buy The General Theory of the Translation Company on Amazon. It's a nice book. Anyway, but my last word would be, if you are in the language services industry, you're a lucky person. You're in an industry where you have great people, where you have, oh my God, a lot of knowledge. I'm all excited here, but then you have a lot of topics. It affects everything in all the businesses. So I'm happy to be a fellow traveler in this journey, and I hope you enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed our suffering and our conversation. This has been a really good time. I will include links. We'll put some links below for everything that we talked about. NIMSI, Dynamic Language, the Association of Language Companies, of course. Sean Evans, First We Feast People, thank you for letting us borrow your format for this interview. You guys do amazing work. We're going to continue to watch that, and thank you all. Oh, man. Good job. Good job. Oh, my God. That was so spicy.